The Duke of Barrowdale came into the walled garden at 7 in the morning, with his grandmother's ring in his waistcoat pocket, and the garden was empty. That was not possible. In 4 months it had never once been empty. Holly stood on the gravel between the pear wall and the melon frames with the dew soaking his boots, and the bees were up in the espaliers, and there was a pair of shears left open on the potting bench, which she would never have done, and a note pinned to the trunk of the great pear with a grafting label. 6 lines, no salutation, no signature. The Dowager on the south wall was to be summer pruned before Friday and not after. The new grafts in the third frame wanted shade at noon and water at 6, not at noon. Tom knew but would forget. Her Grace had been in the garden yesterday afternoon and had made her wishes very plain, and they were reasonable wishes, and she was gone, and he was not to send after her. Then the last 2 lines. Thank you for the 4 months. They were the best of my life, and I would not have them spoiled by being argued about. Holly's Barrowdale read it 4 times standing up, and then he sat down on the edge of a cold melon frame in his good coat, and did not move for some minutes. He had known Marion Dell, in the way one knows a face on one's own land, for 11 years. Her father had been head gardener at Barrowdale until a stroke took the use of his right side in the winter of the year 14, and after that his daughter had simply gone on doing the work, and nobody had thought to stop her because the fruit had never been better. Hollies had begun coming to the walled garden in March, ostensibly about the pinery. He had continued coming in April, when there was no possible pretext, and by the beginning of May he had abandoned pretexts altogether and simply appeared at 7 every morning and stayed until 8:30, and had learned to tie a raffia bud graft, and to hold a ladder, and to shut up when he was talking nonsense. He had learned what she was. She raised pears, not grew raised. She had a seedling on the south wall in its 9th year, from a cross she had made herself with a camel hair brush at 19, and in the previous September it had fruited properly for the first time, and Hollies had eaten one standing in the rain and had understood dimly. In the way a man understands that a picture is good without knowing why, that he was eating something that did not exist anywhere else in England. He had also learned the exact color of the inside of her wrist, where the sleeve turned back, and that she hummed at the grafting and stopped at the pruning, and that she had refused a place with a great nursery firm at Bristol twice, in 2 successive Februaries, because of her father. And in 4 months he had not once told a single living soul that he intended to marry her. That was the thing he came to, sitting on the melon frame with the note in his hand, not his mother, himself. Because there had been a dinner on the Tuesday, 9 people, and his mother at the far end, and some fool of a cousin had said something about the garden, that his Grace was become quite the horticulturist, and was it true that the whole of it was managed by a young woman? And the Dowager Duchess of Barrowdale had said lightly, over the soup, "The Dells have been at Barrowdale 3 generations. One is fond of them as one is fond of the dogs." And Hollies had said he could hear himself saying it. He would hear himself saying it for the rest of his life. Miss Dell is a very capable person, and had changed the subject. Not I intend to marry her. Not you will not speak of her so at my table, just capable and then the fish. His mother had gone down to the garden the following afternoon. He found her in the yellow morning room at 8:30 with her chocolate, and he did not sit down. "You went to the walled garden yesterday." "I did." The Dowager set down her cup. She was not a coward. He had never been able to accuse her of that. "I told her that you are the 8th Duke of Barrowdale, that there are 4,000 acres and a name older than the county, and that a gardener's daughter cannot be Duchess of Barrowdale without being laughed at in every drawing-room in England for the whole of her life, and her sons after her. I told her that she was beneath you. I used that word. I do not withdraw it, and I shall not pretend I did not use it." "And what did she say?" His mother looked, for the first time in his memory, uncertain. "She said, 'Thank you for coming to me instead of to him,' and she asked me whether I had ever eaten one of her pears." The dowager's mouth moved oddly. "I said I had not, and she cut one and gave it to me and stood there while I ate it, and then she said, 'That is 9 years' work, and it is the only thing I have ever made that will outlast me, and it will still be on that wall when both of us are gone, and you may call me beneath him if you like, ma'am, but you will not tell me I am nothing.'" Hollis found that he could not speak. "She is gone, then," said his mother. "She is gone." Hollis, a long pause. "Did you speak for her? On Tuesday, at your own table when Frederick was making a joke of the garden, did you speak for her?" "No," said the Duke of Barrowdale. "Then you cannot lay this at my door," said his mother, "and I find I would rather you could. I said a cruel thing to her face, which I have done before and shall answer for. You said a mild thing behind her back to 9 people who eat at your expense, and that, my dear, is the thing she has run from." She picked her cup back up, and her hand was not steady. "She did not go because I called her beneath you. She went because she had heard you agree." He was in Bristol by Thursday, because there were only 2 nursery firms in England that had ever offered Marian Dell a place, and one of them was on the Gloucester Road. They had her. Of course they had her. They had taken her the same day she walked in. She was in the fruit ground at the far end of 11 acres, and the foreman took him out along a path between rows of maiden trees, and Hollis saw her before she saw him kneeling in the dirt with a knife and a roll of raffia, sleeves turned back, working in a place where nobody knew who her father was. "You had my note," she said, when she had got to her feet and brushed her hands down her apron. She was steady. She was grayer about the eyes than she had been on Monday. "I had your note. Tom watered at noon on Wednesday, and I moved the shade frame myself on Thursday, and I am reliably informed by your father that I did it wrong." "You went to see my father." "He gave me his opinion of me in some detail," said Hollis, "with the half of his mouth that works, and it took him 11 minutes, and he was right." Marian Dell looked at the maiden trees for a while. "Your Grace, I am going to be plain, because we have never been anything else in that garden, and I should hate to begin now." She folded her arms. "You have come to ask me to marry you. You had the ring on Monday. Your coachman told our foreman, who told me, and I have had 5 days to be sensible about it, so do not think you are surprising me." "Then let me ask." "No," said Marian, "because if you ask now, I shall have to say no, and you will not understand why, and you will go away thinking it was pride or your mother. It was not your mother." She met his eyes. "On Tuesday, at your own table, your cousin Frederick made a joke of my garden, and her Grace said the Dells were like the dogs, and you said that Miss Dell was a very capable person." Holly stood in 11 acres of nursery ground, and said nothing at all. "Capable," said Marian. "I have been in service to your family since I was 14. Capable is what one writes on a character. And I sat up all Tuesday night, your Grace, and I understood that you had had 120 mornings in which to say the other thing to me or to anybody, and had not said it once, not because you are a coward, but because it had never yet cost you anything, and a thing that has cost nothing has no weight." Her voice did not rise. "Your mother came to me on Wednesday and called me beneath you, and I did not mind it half so much, because she at least said it out loud to my face." "You are entirely right," said Hollis Barrowdale. Marian blinked. "I came here," he said, "with a speech, and it was a good speech, and I have just now understood that it is worth exactly as much as capable, so I shall not make it." He put his hat back on. "I will not ask you today. You are quite right that I have not earned the asking. Miss Dell, may I write to you?" "No," she said, and then, after a moment, "You may send me nothing but the shade frame readings, and I shall correct them. And that is not an encouragement, it is a professional courtesy." He went home, and Barrowdale noticed. The household would say afterwards that his Grace was not unkind that summer, only terribly quiet, that he was up at 7 every morning, and walked in the walled garden alone for an hour and a half in all weathers, that he read the horticultural transactions at dinner, that he dismissed nobody, raised nobody's rent, and went to London once for 4 days, and came back with a great many books about fruit, and one about the law of copyhold, which nobody could account for. He also, on the 11th of July, at his own table, in front of the same 9 people, put down his knife when his cousin Frederick began upon the subject of the garden. "Frederick, stop." Hollis looked round the table until it was silent. "In this house we do not make a joke of Miss Marian Dell. She is the finest raiser of fruit in the west of England. She has a 9-year-old seedling pear on my south wall that will be in catalogues when every person in this room is forgotten. And I asked her 4 days ago for leave to write to her, and she refused me. And she was right to refuse me, and I intend to spend the rest of the summer deserving a different answer." He picked his knife back up. "You may all repeat that anywhere you like. I should be obliged if you would be accurate." There was, he understood, no possible way of unsaying it. That was the entire point. His mother did not speak to him for 9 days. On the 10th she came into the library with a letter in her hand, sealed and addressed, and put it on the table. "You will frank that," she said, "and you will not read it, and you will never ask me what is in it." "Mother." "Hollis, I have been a duchess for 41 years, and I have been wrong perhaps 3 times, and I have never yet apologized for any of them, and I find at 72 that it is a great deal harder than dying will be." Her chin was exactly as high as it had been on the morning of the chocolate. "She stood in front of me and gave me the best thing she had ever made, and asked me not to call her nothing. I have thought of it every night since." Frank the letter. The Barrowdale and West County Horticultural Show was held in the 2nd week of September in a marquee on the cricket field, and it was the great day of that country, and 400 people came to it. In the class for dessert pears there were 19 dishes. The 18th was entered in the secretary's book, in the Duke of Barrowdale's own hand, as follows: "Seedling, unnamed, 9th year, raised at Barrowdale by Miss Marian Dell. Exhibited by permission of the raiser." It took the first prize, and then the silver medal of the society for the best fruit in the show of any class, and the president, a very old man who had judged fruit for 50 years, and had eaten a great deal of it, got up on the platform, and said that he had tasted nothing to touch it since he was a boy in Herefordshire, and asked whether the raiser was present, because the society would wish to see the person who had done it. Hollis Barrowdale stood up. "The raiser is not present," he said, "because she left my employment in June, and she left it for a reason that does me no credit whatever, and since I am among neighbors I shall tell you what it was. A joke was made about her at my table, and I answered it mildly. I called her capable." He waited out the silence. "She raised that pear with a camel hair brush when she was 19 years old and waited 9 years for it to fruit, and she has never had a penny for it, and she has never had her name on it until this afternoon. Mr. President, put her name in the book and put it in the transactions and spell it correctly. Dell. Miss Marian Dell, of Barrowdale." Then he sat down and let 400 people look at him, and found he did not mind. The medal, the catalogue, and the printed certificate went to Bristol, by the Monday coach, with no letter of any kind enclosed. She came on the Thursday. He was in the walled garden at 7, as he had been every morning for 3 months, standing between the pear wall and the melon frames, with the dew soaking his boots, and the gate opened, And Marion Dell came in with a corded box in one hand and her own knife and raffia in the other, and stopped on the gravel. Neither of them managed anything for a moment. "The Dayen wants summer pruning," she said unevenly. "It is 3 weeks late." "I know, I have not touched it. I was not going to touch it." "Your Grace." "Hollies," he said. "You have called me it twice in 4 months, and both times by accident, and I have thought about both of them a great deal." Marion set down the box. Her eyes were streaming, and she did not appear to have any intention of doing anything about it. "Your mother's letter said one sentence," she said. "She wrote that she had been wrong and that she hoped I would come and grow fruit for her grandchildren, and she signed it Augusta with no title at all, and I have read it 40 times. A breath. And the catalogue said Dell. In print. My father has it under his pillow, Hollies. He will not have it in a frame. He will have it under his pillow." "Marion." "Ask me now," she said. "Now it has cost you something, ask me now." The Duke of Barrowdale took his grandmother's ring out of his waistcoat pocket, where it had been for 91 days. "Marry me," he said. "I have said it to my mother, to my cousin, to 9 people at dinner, and to 400 at a flower show, and I should like at last to say it to you, in the only place I have ever been any good. Marry me, and be laughed at in London, which we shall bear, and be right about the shade frames, which I shall bear worse." "Yes," said Marion Dell. They were married in the Barrowdale parish church in the last week of October, and the gardeners of 3 counties came, and the Dowager Duchess of Barrowdale wept without apology in the second pew, and afterwards took her daughter-in-law's arm in front of everybody on the church path. The pair went into the catalogues the following year and stayed there for 120. It was offered a grander name once, by a nurseryman who thought Duchess of Barrowdale would sell better, and the Duchess of Barrowdale refused it in a letter of 2 lines that was framed and hung in that firm's office for 2 generations. She had been Dell when she made it. She saw no reason to improve on the truth. And every morning at 7, for 38 years, the Duke of Barrowdale came into the walled garden and held the ladder for his wife, and was told when he was talking nonsense, and never once in all that time called her capable.